All right, everybody, so what's cracking? So I saw yesterday. I saw my boy Gil's video on Plaza being racist. Um, and um, so I got a message right now. I don't want this to be perceived in any type of way of me having a disagreement with Gil, because I don't. This is one of those situations where, like people can experience the same thing, but view it differently, right? Also, I went to YA and went in at a different time than Gil came in, um, and so things had begun to change a little bit when he came in. But we'll get to that in a second. So, uh, me personally, in my personal opinion, I look back and I see YA as probably the most racist as far as brown and black, probably close to the most racist time I ever did, you know. And like I could talk about YA, YA was kid shit. It doesn't have all the, stuff that the the joint has. Just say that, right? And so, um, any of you guys that were in YA, you guys know we had rules. We had rules specifically regarding our interactions with blacks back then, right? And one of the main rules was you never touched anything that a black person touched, whether it was an inmate or staff. Period. If they touched it, it was no good. You couldn't touch it. You couldn't have it. That was a wrap. Um, and that rule was pushed very hard. I mean, that right there it's dictating how you're going to interact right there, right? Um, there were other rules. You couldn't initiate conversation with a black, but if they started conversation, then you can engage in the conversation, but you weren't to go be buddy buddy with them. Uh, there was another rule when I was there where if a black dude bumps into you and don't say excuse me, take off. If he steps on your foot, any kind of contact with you and they don't say excuse me, you take off. Period. And I remember one time my homie we're running him down when he got there and we're telling him, look at this, what's up? And he was honest. He was like, fuck, Holmes, what if I lose? And we're like, fuck it, you lose. But we weren't telling him we're going to jump in. There could be a heads up. But once somebody starts dogging you out, we're jumping in. Especially if it was them. That's just how it was back then. And we would tell him, like, fool, just if you lose, you lose. We're not going to tell him we're going to jump in. He'll see when shit happens. But, and he says, fuck, but what if I have to keep fucking getting my ass whooped? And we told him, like, fool, even if you lose, a motherfucker can get tired of getting punched in his mouth and he's gonna start saying, excuse me, don't worry about it, right? But and one of the reasons why, to me, why it was more racist, way more racist than the pen was, in the pen there's, I don't like talking about the joint. You guys already know that. But we'll just say there's things can't happen in the pen like they can in white. And why you can act on your racism like that. Who's to stop you, right? If you want to get off on them, you get off on them. In the pen, you're not doing that. In the pen, you it's you're not doing that, right? So there's racism as far as there's hatred in your heart and your mind, maybe with certain individuals, but you don't get to act on it the way in YA is a fucking wild wild west back then. You got off on whoever the fuck you wanted, whenever the fuck you wanted. So people were able to act on their shit. I remember we had 2 riots in one day with the blacks, And it actually had nothing to do with our compa. It had to do with another compa that led the East Coast jump some dudes from Florencia, and we weren't feeling that shit. And where I was at in Paso at the time, I was on Napomo. Napomo was the most racist place I ever been. There was fucking 15 raza on there and 3 gabachos. The rest was all blacks. There was no, I mean, you couldn't budge an inch. Anything, what, boom, and we're getting off for everything, you know, like, it was just like that, man. But he's right. Gil's right. We there were times where you would gamble with certain dudes, you know. But for the most part, man, it was just, you know, that back then, that what used to separate, like the dudes from Nellis were always trying to compete with the dudes in Paso, right? Um, but the huge difference between Nellis and Paso back then, Nellis was more just gang banging, you know, getting off on your enemigos. That was the main thing, and then a lot of the fucking mind games they played. Paso was mandatory. You're gonna gang bang, get off on your enemigos, but we're also gonna have this fucking issue that's never stopping over there at that time with the blacks. So you had you had a lot of shit. Um, Maybe one day I'll tell you the story about the fight I got into in the chow hall with the biggest fucking black dude in the institution. Chinaman from 11 Deuce Hoover. What's up? Shout out to Damon. Uh, but yeah, man, you know, and it was behind the whole racism shit, you know. And let me give you an example before I go. Talking about, you know, if they touch anything. I was on the Pomo, and for whatever reason, okay, there was a black cop there, and he was from Bakersfield. He was a Spoonie G. There's a Crip gang out there, and there was three Spoonie G's on our dorm. And so they hatched this idea where they were gonna throw a barbecue, right? And while they're cooking, you know, we were like, oh hell yeah, fucking barbecue. And the black staff started flipping the chicken with his hand. And they were all laughing because they knew at that point, ain't none of these Mexicans gonna eat this food. It's all ours now, right? So we were like, damn, man, that shit looks so fucking bomb. And we hadn't had no fucking barbecue, you know, so they were all grubbing and laughing, ha ha ha. And we're like, all right. They did that. Swear it was maybe the very next fucking week, man. They throw another barbecue, right? And then, oh, this shit's gonna be bomb, and they're woofing, and we're just like, fuck, you know, okay. But see, we had already talked. If this happens again, we got something for that ass, right? So when they started serving, hey, everybody get in line for your food. Boom. All the raza got in the line. 3 gabachos got in line. Boom. And all the blacks were looking like, what the fuck? These dudes are going to eat this food? They knew it was going to be all bad. Well, you cannot eat that food. And we got in line. Boom. And we all got our plates. And we all went off to the fence and lined up on the fence. Boom. Until all the raza and the gabachos got their food. And as soon as we did, boom, we all went to the trash can and dumped it. Spit on it. The staff was mad, and his homeboys were mad, and the other ones. But a lot of the blacks on the dorm started laughing, right? And the hood, I was like, hey, what the fuck throwing away that food? He's like, and I told him, I said, you know what the fuck you were doing? You got us once, you weren't gonna get us twice. You know, anytime you barbecue, if you touch that food, we're gonna go and we're gonna throw that shit in the trash. And that's just, that just shows, you know, like, there was rules to conduct when it came to them. That bred a lot of the hatred that was furthered in the pen. But like I said, in the pen, you can't, I mean, yeah, there's riots, but there's channels you have to go through to get to that point, right? And YA, it's just like, I remember was two dudes from South Los. I'm not gonna say their names. Two dudes from South Los, and you guys know South Los and the Hoovers. 11 Deuce was one of the ones. Anyways, every weekend, and this shit only lasted like 2, maybe 3 weekends. These two dudes from South Los had major hands, and they went boom to the blacks, and they said, "Hey, check this out. We got whatever amount of sopas, cases of soups, chips, whatever you want to put up. Me and my homeboy will fight any of you two back to back, whatever you want to do. We'll put our bag of canteen there. You put your bag of canteen, and whoever wins, we take all of it." You know? And they were like, you know, they don't know how to fight. They only know how to use weapons. So they were like, let's go. Boom. Went in there. Boop, 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 boop. Two dudes from South Los came out like Santa Claus, right? And they were like, next. 2 more dudes went in there like, I ain't lose no essay. Lost their shit. But that's the kind of shit where they were acting on their hatred. You know what I mean? Where in the pen, you just can't do that. When it's time to do that, then you can act on it. But it's not like you can just at any time be like, fuck that vato. I'm going to go fucking sock this dude in his mouth. What's he going to do? You know, so. Anyways, that's just my thing. When Gil got there, I just want to clarify. When Gil got there, Gil got to Paso in 92. In 1992 is when they started bringing the Norteños to Paso. I remember when the very first bus came and the very first incident happened over there. Real quick, they had a vato from Fresno that was a Golden Gloves boxer, and the first ride he knocked it like 3 or 4 dudes out, man. And it was crazy how many fucking razors and knives got caught. Everybody was mad, sending all kinds of shit to that fucking. It happened in Arroyo, in that unit, Fish Tank, and everybody was sending shit. Fucking kill that motherfucker, that boxer. Stop fighting him, because there was like 2 riots back to back, and he was putting motherfuckers to sleep. Shit. So it was a little bit different things. So I got kicked out at that time. When Gil came is when I had already been to Cambria twice. I was supposed to go back the 3rd time, and they just said, you know what? They sent me to YTS, kicked me out of Paso. That was around the time that Gil came in, and so I know Gil. I know what he's speaking is his truth, you know, and what I'm speaking is mine. And so in my opinion, that was probably the most fucking racist, just because you got to act on it. All right, now this is too long late.